I'm Axelsims, and this is a different video from my usual. I'm not actually publishing anything on this video. This isn't Final Fantasy IV or fanfiction or any of that sort. While it has something related to those, this is actually me pointing out or giving a shout out or explaining or just, I don't know exactly what you would call it. For those of you who don't know, which I'm sure none of you do, I've actually been working on fanfiction myself. It's the first time I've ever actually done it, and I don't think it's any good, but I figured that I'm sure many of you would love to make fun of me. So I'm going to be posting a link in the description. It's been uploaded to a website called femfiction.net or com or something like that. I can't remember precisely. It's ponies. It's friendship is magic. Fem, see, friendship is magic. Fan fiction. You get it. What I'm saying. Yes, I decided that my first fan fiction, if I'm ever going to actually write another one, is going to be involving ponies. Yay! And the other thing I wanted to do was, other than just announce, oh hey, by the way, you know, make fun of me. I've also wanted to kind of explain the story or some author's notes behind it and what really inspired me. Hey, why would you want to write fan fiction? I mean, honestly, whatever I've done, I'm pretty sure someone's done 10 times better. Now, obviously, that never really bothered me because, I mean, I do Let's Plays, and let's face it, I'm pretty sure anything I've done has not ever been, not done before, and that I'm completely unoriginal. But, regardless, there is a couple of points behind it. The inspiration of the story, which is called Dusk Star, by the way, well, actually, I should probably just explain the plot. It's one of those fan fictions where a human gets sent to Equestria. Now, generally, whenever this happens, it's generally a clopfic, which is something I kind of wanted to avoid. Now, I don't mind clopfics at all, actually. I mean, honestly, in my opinion, adding some of the darker elements of life, if you would call it that, like sex and drugs and murder and crime and things of that nature that most people wouldn't like to talk about whenever they're trying to be positive and thinking about something like ponies. Generally, I actually find the addition of such darker elements to generally make the story much better in general. Like, for example, I think Twilight would be a lot better if Bella just came out and said, oh, hey, by the way, I'm a crazy fucking bitch. Have sex with me, both of you, now. Of course, I don't actually like Twilight, but that's beside the point. Anyway, so yes, it's one of those stories where a human finds his way into Equestria. And I wanted the inspiration of it, of course, was actually from another fanfic called Twy and Me, which is a cloudfic where a human gets sent to Equestria, really original, right? And ends up having sex with Twilight Sparkle, the pony, not the human form or anything, sanitary and, well, not really sanitary. What's the word I'm looking for? Comfortable or anything, you know. But no, with the actual pony, which was kind of awkward, to say the least. And then what made me actually want to post it was when I saw another fiction called Xenophilia, which is a lot better, except it involved Rainbow Dash, which I don't really mind Rainbow Dash, but yeah, hey, whatever. Actually, I really love the novel series book. It's a shame it hasn't been finished. But anyway, they're both clopfics. And like I said, nothing wrong with clopfics, but well, there was two things. First of all, the main character in both of those books, well, except for Xenophilia, okay, the main character and Twy and Me, to be more precise, didn't really have, he wasn't really a character. I mean, he was supposed to be you, yes, but the big problem with implementing the main character to be the reader, to be the person actually reading the novel, is that sometimes things happen in the novel that really throw off, I guess it's the same thing with RPG games nowadays. many RPG games, the silent protagonist no longer exists because people want an actual character. And while that's not a big problem, it does bring up to the point where you're more like a puppet master than an actual uh, character, possibly even the driver for the passengers for the events. You drive the characters to certain events, they do certain things. It's kind of like being a limousine driver, for example, where, you know, you aren't. I guess a really good way to explain this is if you've ever read a fan fiction or you've ever played a game where the main character is supposed to be you, where you're role playing as the main character. How many times have you ever said or has the a certain event happened, or the main character said something, and you were like, I would never say that, or I would never do anything like that. Excuse me. But regardless, you get my point. It really throws it off. And I was trying to kind of avoid that, and at the same time, I was trying. The main goal was to create something similar to Twy and Me, something similar to a human relationship with a pony, without actually doing it like that. It's really hard to explain. Having a relationship with a pony, but at the same time making it okay by doing certain things differently so that it's not really given the image of bestiality. Because that's the main problem with like Twy and Me, for example. Because if you are not okay or acceptable with that boundary, if you find the thought of having sex, for example, with one of the ponies from My Little Pony, like if you would find having Twilight Sparkle on top of you, you know, awkward because she's a horse, you know, that does ruin the mood. And that actually happened to me when I was reading Twy and Me with a secondary character because we read it together. And there were 2 points where it was just really, really awkward. One of the main things that really bothered me about it is the fact that the author of this pointed out that the nipples of said ponies are lower on the body than where a human was. And that's rather disgusting, honestly. Well, not disgusting. I find it odd, different. I really liked Xenophilia's way of doing it by comparing one of the actual characters to an actual horse, where they made differences and said, well, this really technically wouldn't be considered a horse. This isn't really the same thing. This is a different gen, this is a different breed, this is a different race of existence altogether. It'd be more like xenophilia, which is having sex with aliens. That's the actual, or having a thing for aliens, I guess would be a better term for it. So I kind of wanted to do something similar, but at the same time not similar. I didn't want to, point out something that has already been done. What I wanted to do was, well, I can't exactly spoil it, but I wanted to make a similar working to Twy and Me, put more story into it, because Twy and Me was a one shot, and I didn't really want to write a one shot. I'm not good at writing one shots because I always want to expand more. I always want to write more. If I ever, I mean, it's not the first time I've ever actually written anything. It's the first time I've ever published anything or put it out there. Same thing with games. I've always wanted to expand more, which is a problem, but I have already had an ending in mind. Multiple endings, in fact, which is always a good thing to have, in my opinion, because it always opens up those possible. And the best ending I think has ever occurred is an ending where it leaves questions in your mind. An abrupt ending, an ending where not everything is finished, because then it gives you ideas. But I'm getting sidetracked. So I wanted to make it not nearly as awkward. The main goal was to make a fan fiction where a male human, not necessarily a male human, a female human possibly, uh, could fall in love potentially with one of the main 6 characters and not change the person or the character into a pony or a human, and to just cut that out altogether, and to not make it really, really awkward. That was the main goal, was to find a way to do that without making it incredibly awkward. Because so both of them could enjoy it. The people who were into that could enjoy it. The people who were not into that could still enjoy the book. And one of the things I wrote, or what that's in the story, is that I never actually gave the main character a name. The first reason why I did this, obviously, was because I wasn't sure what name I would give him, if I or her. I never actually specified the gender as either, because like I said, I wanted to open it to a wider audience. I wanted to make this fan fiction actually readable and enjoyable to someone who, either gender. Both of the stories that I've mentioned have a male protagonist. And if you're the main character and, you know, you're not a male, then some things are different. Obviously, you don't have a penis. So, you know what I'm saying. Of course, it's magic, so you could always just grow one. So I never specified on a gender. Well, that's not true. I ended up specifying on a gender anyway. Well, no, not necessarily. See, there's one point in the story, I think it's like chapter 2 or 3, that Pinkie Pie asks the main character if he or she is a male. Now, this question never gets replied to because Pinkie Pie's a crazy little bitch and, goes off on rampage and rants on and badgers on, and the question's never really answered, but I did kind of hint to it because while they'd never seen a human before, it would not be that hard. Well, actually, yeah, it kind of would be, wouldn't it? Well, whatever. So the question of gender is still undecided, and honestly, I'm hoping it stays that way. Now, obviously, there's a couple of problems if I'm going to do this. The first of all is that I basically won't be able to put in a sex scene the way that other fanfictions, or clopfics, if you wish, would do it. For example, I can make a reference to sex. Like, for example, I could say that one night the main character and another character got completely hammered and ended up having sex, and then they wake up the next morning. But if I don't actually describe the sex scene, then you don't actually know what happened. You don't actually know. If you avoid classifying, then you can potentially allow it for either gender to be available. And that was another thing that I wanted to avoid. I didn't really want to, stereotype the male character, and I didn't want to be complete deviant and do, oh, it's a female, because, and while most guys like me find lesbians to be extremely hot, okay, porn star lesbians, not actual lesbians, because there's a difference. Not every lesbian is a smoking hot blonde or brunette or redhead who, is, what I'm saying. Anyway, back to the point. So I also kind of wanted to implement other characters. Twy and Me did not do this. Twy and Me only had the main character and Twilight. That's all it was. Then again, it was a one-shot. Xenophilia does actually involve the other characters, but it does so on a very minor level other than Twilight. The main characters in Xenophilia are the main character, who is Lero, if I remember his name correctly, Rainbow Dash, and Twilight Sparkle. Later on in the game, or a book, or whatever you want to call it. It's not really a game, is it? But I kind of wanted to implement more of the characters. Like, for example, of the chapters that I've uploaded so far, I haven't actually, I've uploaded all I've written so far after double checking and, making sure it all sounds good. The main character, the characters that's made appearances so far is the main character, Zecora the zebra. Yeah, I know, right? The main 6, Princess Celestia, and Princess Luna. And Spike makes an appearance, but he hasn't said anything yet. And I'm not entirely sure where I'm going to be going with Spike. That's the other thing I have a problem. I have endings in mind. Shut up, phone. I have endings in mind. In fact, I have a two potentially bad endings. Well, one bad ending, one neutralish ending, one good ending, and the bad ending actually comes in rather earlier than the other two. Kind of. To just set out the possibilities in mind. Like, what if this happened? Or what if that happened? And while those questions will never ever cease to exist, and you will never ever be able to fill in every possibility, the fact of being able to do that is kind of interesting in my opinion. But anyway, there's I kind of wanted to implement more than just one or two other characters than the main character because it really feels like you should. You know, I mean, you have all this potential for other characters and you're shutting them out just to focus on one or two when honestly the cast of MLB is very diverse, interesting, and you could do so much with it. So I decided to put the storyline in between episodes and also partially interacting with episodes. And what I mean by this is, for example, one of the chapters takes place in the episode where Twilight has a slumber party with Applejack and Rarity. And the main character ends up staying, at least as of this moment, is at this moment staying with Rarity because element of generosity. Who gives a fuck, you know? Uh, and while he is there, he does not 100% interact with the story. I don't really want to change episodes, for example. Like, he's there, but he doesn't change the major plot. He's kind of like a background character, which I kind of wanted. And then the other chapters that don't interfere with the actual episodes or take place in the actual like in between episodes will actually have their own unique settings, I guess you could say. Not saying that I'm completely ripping off. For example, like I said, the one where that interacts with the Twilight and Sleepover, while obviously it does happen, I put very little actual writing into the Sleepover. I mean, I gave like I mentioned the pillow fight, and I mentioned the final part where the tree falls into the house and they ended up having to work together to fix it. Uh, and the only reason I actually put that part in was because it had a major part in the story, because that actually ends up involving him, even though it doesn't actually interfere with the main plot. And if you haven't read it, then go ahead and read it, and you'll understand what I'm saying. Or don't. It's okay. I honestly don't mind. But like I said, that was my idea. Honestly, he ends up falling asleep before most of the major events happen, and that's a good excuse. It was kind of an excuse as to why. But there is a lot of things that are undecided. First of all, I have absolutely no idea who the character that the main character is going to end up pairing up with. If that actually does happen, I might change my mind halfway through it and be like, screw this, he's just gonna be single. Or maybe I'll just have every character falling for him because why the fuck not, you know? Be diverse, be creative. Honestly, I'm not going to do the whole everyone falls in love with him because that would be kind of awkward, wouldn't it? I mean, every character. I read a fan fiction recently where Twilight Sparkle is in love with both Luna and Celestia, and I was like, damn, that's a lot of work. Hmm. Anyway, so of course Xenophilia has the same thing, except it's not Celestia and Luna; it's two other characters. But who cares? What I'm trying to say is I'm probably not going to go into like polygamy or anything like that, but the thought has crossed my mind. And another thing that I kind of wanted to work on is I kind of wanted to implement the whole relationship thing without making it the main plot of the story. Like, well, okay, that's not necessarily true. The relationship part is really the main part of the story. There's other things in the story besides relationships. That's what I'm gonna say. Yeah, that's basically what it is. There's other parts inside of it that are not just, you know, the main character's feelings about the main six characters or the other characters or whatever. It's actually more than just that. There's other things in it. There's the fact that the main character does not actually want to be in Equestria, at least during the start. I have not decided. That's another thing. I have not decided on how that's going to develop. Eventually, yes, he will become more comfortable, and the thought of staying will cross his mind more than once. In fact, it already has crossed his mind. The thought of if he had the choice to leave, would he now? And the reason why so early in the series that such a thought would even arise is, well, first of all, he was talking about going home, and then he had the thought about, well, what if I don't really actually want to go home? But the main reason is because I kind of wanted to have the character come from an alternate dimension or alternate universe of Earth, for example. His profession in the storyline, he's basically a writer slash designer. He's called a creator, which in this universe is, or not this, but in the alternate universe is basically an artist, I guess you could say, uh, a writer, a drawer. He creates things, and he's on vacation in a country. But you know, if you ever watch The Melancholy of Haruhi Suzumiya, you will understand one of the main characters. The main characters, some of their plot or his problems with the world that he was living in. The main one is that if you look at the world around you today, there's a lot of similar people. And that's very rude to say, but it's true. Just like Let's Playing, just like writing fan fiction, things are very similar. My story, for example, is very or has very similar things in it as other stories. My Let's Plays are very similar to some other Let's Plays because they just are. I don't try to make them similar. I might get ideas from some of them. I might, well, not really Let's Playing. Let's Playing was I wanted to play video games and record myself because I saw somebody else do it and I was like, that actually sounds really fun. But regardless, you get the point. If you look around the world, you see a lot of similar people. If you ever go to a football stadium, you look at all those people and you have to wonder to yourself, am I really any different? Is there something special about me? And the answer, the true answer, honestly, is no. I work at McDonald's right now. I'm 18. I recently graduated from high school with a bunch of other kids who also graduated from high school. One of my old classmates from my old school is actually working in the same place as I am. Oh shit. I just heard the door partially open. Pause. So anyway, after that little interruption, I think it's about time to call this video to an end. So everyone, I'm Axelsims, and I hope you all like my new fanfiction that I've been writing. Or don't. Or don't even check it out. It's alright if you don't. I honestly don't mind. Final Fantasy IV video will be coming up in a couple of, probably like tomorrow. I don't know. Right. So anyway, leave a comment if you want anything, suggestions or ideas about fanfiction for me to read. I will see you all next time.